A black belt is just a white belt who never quit. Those were the words of this gentleman, Carlos Gracie. Carlos Gracie is credited with bringing the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out of Brazil and into the United States. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to tell you how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu can help raise your physical fitness, it can help increase your self-confidence, and it can help you in any situation defend yourself if that need ever arises. Very unlikely it will, but if it does, it's always good to be prepared. I am a practicing student of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I practice here in my hometown of Livermore from a Gracie Academy, which is a descendant of Carlos Gracie. I also practiced martial arts when I was a kid, so I did Taekwondo growing up for a long time and then various forms of karate until I was in high school. Took a long break and then just started practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I've spent time preparing for this talk today, researching the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where it came from, why it's important, and what differentiates it from other martial arts. So first, today I'm going to tell you about what I learned about where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came from. Secondly, I'm going to talk to you about the physical benefits you'll get from training Jiu-Jitsu. And last, I'm going to talk to you about what a day in the life of practicing Jiu-Jitsu means. So if I join a gym or an academy and I go to class, what does that look like? So starting back, where did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu come from? So like most martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Jiu-Jitsu originated from Asia. It originated from the warrior cultures of China and the Mongols and the Japanese, who were fighting wars with weapons pre-guns. And as guns came out and weapons got better, the martial arts became more of an art and less of an active practice. So in the beginning, when martial arts were really the form of weapon, those and a knife is what you would use to fight wars, the practices of Jiu-Jitsu, which is a form of grappling, originated from there. And over time, as weapons evolved and the way of the samurai left, the way martial arts evolved, where they became an art, a practice, a physical exercise, and you would train to fight wars with swords and guns and things of that nature. So when that happened, when that turn of events happened in Asia, what happened was the form of Jiu-Jitsu, which was a grappling art, which means you grab and try to control an opponent. It's not like the Karate Kid where you see kicking and punching and things like that. What happened was Jiu-Jitsu split up into many different types of martial arts, and you may see these on buildings as you drive around your hometown, like Aikido and Judo. Judo is still an Olympic event. It's an Olympic event you can train and compete in. And what happened was we get these 3 or 4 types of martial arts which are about physical fitness and practice and discipline, but not so much about practical fighting as they used to be. And in the early 1900s, there was a Japanese colony that settled in Brazil from Japan. So a bunch of people from Japan immigrated to Brazil from Japan and they started a colony. When that happened, they needed a place to stay, they wanted to open businesses, they needed to get things going. And the Gracie family, at the time in Brazil, were prominent business owners, and they helped some of the Japanese get settled and build buildings and start commerce. And when this happened in trade, one of the Japanese immigrants was a judo master. He taught other people the martial art of judo. And traditionally the more primary form, which was Jiu-Jitsu. So in return for a lot of the business favors they were working on, this judo practitioner, I'm going to look his name up real quick, his name was Isai Maeda. Isai Maeda taught the Gracie's kids how to do Jiu-Jitsu. And over time, what happened was they learned to fight from a young age, they learned these art of grappling, but what was different from them and the Japanese was the Brazilian guys were really small. And the Japanese guys were really big. Think of like sumo wrestlers, big judo wrestlers, there are lots of weightlifting, really big guys who were practicing the sport. And what happened was, particularly Carlos Gracie here, kept getting beaten. He kept getting beaten all the time, over and over and over again by bigger and stronger people at this martial art. So over time, he sat back and he watched and he observed and he learned from a very young age, all the way growing up into a teenager, how this martial art worked, what the different techniques were. And he started, and he was also, he had a lot of health issues, Carlos Gracie did. So he got winded very easily, he couldn't gain muscle no matter how much he worked out. He tried really hard, but his body was just very, very weak and very small compared to his opponents. So he sat on the sidelines and he watched a lot. And as he watched a lot, he started to observe angles and differences where he thought he could make a difference. And over years of practice and time, he developed what's known formally as Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is where they took that original martial art from Japan, which came to Japan with the immigrants, got taught to this family from a very young age, and they modified it so that it does not take a lot of strength, it does not take a lot of effort. It's all about leverage and timing. It's about putting your body in the right place at the right time. And what happened was Carlos Gracie here started beating opponents at 160 pounds. He was beating opponents that were 210, 230 pounds without even trying. He went up against world champions. He competed at world levels. And as he did this and he started to win, that's when the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became different from the traditional Jiu-Jitsu or Judo or Aikido or Kempo or any of those practices. So what's specifically different about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is this man here, and I'm going to go forward here, this is two people competing in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match. But this, you can see these guys are bigger, so this man, went the wrong way, this older man figured out how, with a very weak, small frame, he figured out how to beat very large opponents by using leverage and timing. And it's the emphasis on that leverage and timing, being in the right position, being in the right place, putting your body in the right place, that makes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a different martial art, different from the others. Okay, and then when he decided to move, Carlos brought the sport from, as I said earlier, from Brazil. He immigrated to New York, and he had a lot of kids. He actually had 8 children, all of whom were boys. All of them had more families, and they literally all spread out across the United States throughout the 60s all the way through the 90s, and they opened up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie academies all over the country. I'm very lucky that Carlos's grandson, Hudi, actually lives in the same town as me, and his father, who is one of Carlos's sons named Charles, owns a Jiu-Jitsu academy in Northern California with several locations, so I practice there. Okay. So that's a little bit about the history and what's different, and the key thing to remember is Jiu-Jitsu is a grappling art, so there's no punching and kicking. It's about grabbing and pulling, and almost like a wrestling match, you would think of if you didn't know anything different. And then the goal of a Jiu-Jitsu match is to get the other opponent to give up, basically, and you do that through a series of chokes or locks where you position yourself in a way that you either choke your opponent, and we don't really choke people, you kind of just give them a nudge, but you choke somebody, or you put them in a joint or an arm lock where it's uncomfortable for them and they give up, and that's the end of the match. So the art of Jiu-Jitsu isn't about knocking someone out or punching someone in the face or breaking boards or kicking. It's about getting control of someone else to a point where they surrender, essentially. And then what makes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu different from a lot of those other martial arts is it's designed specifically for people like me. I'm only 160 pounds, so a smaller person like me with a more slender frame can have a good chance against much larger opponents by using leverage and timing. Okay, so I'm going to talk, now that we went through that, I'm going to talk a bit about the benefits of Jiu-Jitsu. So there's 3 really big benefits that I got when I started practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The first is self-confidence. So it turns out when you know how to carry yourself, you know a lot of these moves and these positions, it's harder to be intimidated by other people, especially bigger people, when you learn some very simple techniques and ways that you can stand up for yourself. Physical fitness. I'm going to talk in a second about a typical class, but my physical fitness is raised a lot. Not only do you work out in the class, but I work out outside of the class so that I can do better in the class, so I can get faster and stronger when I do some of these moves. And then self-defense. Mirroring what I said with confidence earlier, if I'm in a bad situation, I have a family with small children, and if we're walking around a bad part of San Francisco or somewhere else where it's a little dicey, I know that if something happens, I have ways of defending myself given the right situation. So those all help. And last, I wanted to talk to what we call a day on the mats. So if you really enjoyed watching my speech and you say, wow, I want to give this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu thing a try, it sounds like a lot of fun, what does it look like? So these are a couple of photos of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. Traditional Gracie classes are all follow the same format. So you would sign up for what's called an academy or a gym in your area. And it's important that it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and not just Jiu-Jitsu, because as I said, the Brazilian part, that's what gives you the leverage and the timing and the different tech. It's more technique based than other martial arts. So what happens in every class are these four things. First thing you'll do is a warm-up and a workout. That means you'll do some light stretching, you'll do some cardio, push-ups, sit-ups, bridges, typical calisthenics exercises, get your heart rate up, get stronger. After you do that, a lot of the Gracie stuff is it's not just competition jiu-jitsu, it's about self-defense. So they will talk about self-defense situations, they'll talk about what to do if someone grabs you from behind, what to do if someone comes at you from the front. So you have some basic set of moves basic set of tools and things to do in case you get in trouble. Next, we'll drill fundamental techniques. So what that means is you'll learn how to get on top of somebody. You'll learn what to do when you're on the bottom of somebody. You'll learn how to control someone's arm. You'll learn basic techniques of jiu-jitsu that position you to win. And then the last thing you do, and this is really important and it's different in jiu-jitsu from other martial arts, is every day you spar. And unlike karate or boxing or Muay Thai where there's a lot of punching and things like that, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu you're grabbing someone's gi, which is the uniform that they wear, or their arm, so you can wrestle with each other, basically, we call it sparring, and practice the skills. And that's another essential difference of jiu-jitsu from other martial arts is a lot of it is practice. They teach you some skills, some basics, and then they put it into action with other students, and you get to practice and roll, and that helps build your self-confidence and your technique a lot faster. So with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, comes from a lot of the arts in Japan directly to Brazil, where it was modified, and then to New York, where it's spread across the world. Jiu-Jitsu will help raise your self-confidence, raise your sense of physical fitness, and also give you the ability to defend yourself in dicey situations. Hopefully those never come up for you. So I've talked to you about today. Classes are a lot of fun. They're interesting. You're always learning something new. It's practical stuff, and it helps make your life better. So I hope that this speech has made you want to look into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you did, I took a screenshot of myself doing a Google search for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu near me. Would be a great next step for you to try. Thank you for listening to my speech. I hope you have a great day.